Hi, folks, and good evening, and all that kind of stuff. I'm a little bit hyper. It's about 10 o'clock at night, and wanted to talk about a couple of things. Uh, the phenomenon of pareidolia, confirmation bias, and why shows like Ghost Hunters are really stupid. Um, we'll see how much of what I want to talk about I can actually get through. First of all, pareidolia. It is this common phenomenon of uh, seeing things when they're not really there. And I'm not talking about hallucinations, but and I wish I tried to find some good examples, but I really couldn't because internets are stupid. Um, it's basically like when you look up at the clouds and you see like an elephant driving a school bus or something like that. It's recognizing patterns in disorder, and there's auditory pareidolia as well as visual pareidolia. It's basically the entire basis of the Rorschach test. You seeing something when there isn't really there to see, and it's really fascinating. It's a fascinating thing because of the fact that what's happening, the reason that that happens is because of the fact that the technology in our brains that allows us to recognize faces and recognize sounds and differentiate things like that, and be able to say, hey, that's another person, that isn't another person, those sorts of things. But we very much recognize the human face in things. Um, and sounds, again, the ability to recognize our own language, recognize, familiar voices, and the ability to also differentiate between, you know, this all isn't pareidolia. This is basically just what I'm talking about right now is the stuff that happens in your brain that allows you to do all these things. I don't know technical terms, but pareidolia is sort of like seeing the Virgin Mary in a grilled cheese sandwich. That's pareidolia. There was no Virgin Mary in the grilled cheese sandwich, but you see it because there's a shape that reminds your brain of it, and that's what it sees. Um, I really wish I had like an example of this on hand. Um, I I really wish I did. I wish I prepared for this video better. But okay. Perfect example of auditory pareidolia and hearing order in disorder. Go and look up the YouTube videos of any of the uh, Indian music videos with the lyrics. Those aren't the actual lyrics, obviously, but us English speakers are trying to pick out English sounding phrases in in a different language, which are, is, our brains are trying to make sense of it, basically. Um, so that's sort of the whole pareidolia thing. Go look it up your fucking selves. I'm not doing your homework for you. Go find out what the hell it is. It's it's in the way that like you look at the front of a car and you could see a face, or you could look at, again, it's seeing order and disorder, making patterns. Second thing is confirmation bias. Um, this is basically like me saying, I'm going to prove this. I'm going out to prove this thing. And I collect a bunch of evidence that is really poor, crappy evidence, and wouldn't really prove what, but I say, oh, these things prove it. Like I'm gonna go hunt a ghost, and I took a picture with like a blurry thing in it, so that's proof. That's the proof. That's the ghost, and that's what it is. As opposed to going out into an investigation of anything. This doesn't have to be anything supernatural, but I'm sort of on the topic of these two subjects and how they relate to investigating paranormal stuff. Um, I go out into the field without any bias, with an open mind, and I collect the evidence, and I look at it objectively instead of subjectively. Confirmation bias is looking at things subjectively with a specific outcome in mind. And the way that these two things sort of fit together is, again, I mentioned the Rorschach test, and you know, you're sort of feeding into what you're getting out of it. That's the whole Rorschach test thing. There isn't anything, but based on what you project into it is what you're going to get back. And again, the whole ghost thing example. I remember when I was little, we always go to the Jersey Shore on vacation, and there were a lot of ghost tour kind of things. And this one year on this ghost tour, the freaking tour guide pulls out like this tape recorder. She's like, "Oh, and this is a little ghost boy that we recorded on EVP, and he's saying like please don't leave," or it was something like that. And of course, like if you listen to it like 3 or 4 times, you could sort of hear it. But of course, she told you beforehand what you were supposed to hear. And at that point, I sort of believed in ghosts, admittedly. When I was like 12 to 14, that kind of age. And so I was like, yeah, that does. This is proof. That's proof. But confirmation bias specifically has more to do with, again, I'm going to go prove that that Bigfoot exists. So I'm going to go out into the field looking for Bigfoot instead of, saying, I don't know, that's sort of a bad example because I don't know how you could sort of passively do. But again, it's unscientific to have even in science, confirmation bias exists and is discouraged. You don't want to go out saying, I'm gonna prove this thing, even though I don't have anything to back it up yet. I'm gonna prove this. I'm gonna prove this hypothesis that's completely bonkers and doesn't have a lot of weight to it. And then you gather your evidence and you pick convenient things that sort of fit, but don't really prove anything. And now on to the fact, now that I have like a few minutes left, people who are incredibly guilty of this, as well as flat out lying and bullshit, and I totally call bullshit on them, is the fucking ghost hunters guys. Oh my god, everything that they do, the fact that they go into a house and they're not going in blind pisses me off. Again, at this point in my life, I don't believe in ghosts anymore. I don't buy into the whole thing. But even if I did, for you to go up to people, well, what's been going on in this house? Oh, well, there's a freaking flying chandelier, and there's a ghost lady who comes and waddles up to you and pokes you in the back, and this door slams all the time, and this chair seems to rotate counterclockwise, and blah, 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 blah. And then they go into the house. Oh, all that shit that you said was gonna happen happened. Well, yeah, because you wanted those things you were looking for those things, and you were projecting those things, even though they didn't really happen. So that's confirmation bias. And they also use a lot of the stupid EVP recordings, and they take blurry pictures, and like, oh, see, there's like a face and a leg and a thing. It's all these very common psychological tricks that, we all do it. We have to recognize that that's what our brain's doing, that it isn't something paranormal that's going on, that it's just these little tricks that our minds play. And they're tricks that, the reason that our brains play those tricks, there are good reasons for what is happening in our brain. We're trying to recognize something, we're trying to, again, make order out of disorder. But please, let's not mistake those things for crazy paranormal experiences. Okay? Okay. I'm gonna try to do another video tonight. If I don't, well then that's too fucking bad for you. Good night.